I spoke at a student-led and organised study day this week in Bradford, and it was fantastic. And at risk of sounding corny, I always like speaking to student midwives. There were birth workers there and midwives there also. And the reason I like speaking to midwives is because they, in a very real way, are going to be the cutting edge of service delivery for pregnant people and their families and loved ones. I did a return to practice about 7 years ago, I think now, maybe 6 years ago, and I got to work inside the NHS in a very intimate way and with students. And in the main, the students were amazing, but it has to be said that every now and again you'd hear a phrase come out of a student's mouth, and the only place they could have got it from was their mentor. So although the students are very important, they are in a very real way only as good, as radical, as on the cutting edge of what's going on as those they're mentored by. Now, of course, the universities do their best to make sure that the students are on the cutting edge of what's current in the research and all that kind of stuff. But there does still exist, to a certain extent, a practice theory gap when it comes to the input of university lecturers. You know, I don't know how many university lecturers are currently actively practicing on a weekly basis. And that's a challenge for them, bridging that gap. And it got me thinking again about what it is that's at the core of birth that works. And I'm going back to the theme that human beings are, although we like to separate ourselves from our heritage, we are mammals. And underneath our neocortex meaning making, you know, we have this insatiable desire to take drives, to take instincts, to take ways of behaving that are rooted in our mammalian history, that have at their foundation an imperative to survive. We take these drives and we add meaning to them. It's probably where our religions and our strong beliefs and all of those things come from. But when left to herself, when the environment she's in is conducive to her losing herself to the process, which is millions of years old or hundreds of thousands of years old, it's almost as though the doer in the woman is lost and she's just being human as she births. It raises another thought in me, which is the thought that the male of the species and the female of the species, before we began to grow our crops, as when we were hunter and gatherers, evolved and had adaptations inside their neurophysiology and their biology that was rooted in survival, not domination, not usurping the power of the woman, which man has gone on to do and is still doing in many ways. But those functions at core were survival functions. The adaptations inside our bodies adapted that way so that human beings could survive. Now, I said at the conference, and I say it in the book that's shortly coming out, Men, Love and Birth, is that when a man and his partner go into a hospital, what he sees in the structures that are inside that hospital, in the activity that goes on, he sees behaviors that he recognizes. He sees measurement of birth. He sees problems that are being fixed. When he is with his partner throughout the antenatal period, he recognizes the desire to fix problems that haven't even occurred yet. So it's no surprise when he gets totally caught up in structures that are testosterone ridden and have been put in place by men. It distracts him from his primary function, which is focusing on being connected to her. Because when he is connected to her, she gets it. And it creates a flood of oxytocin. And we all know what oxytocin does. It enhances birth in a way that it's been enhancing birth for millions, if not hundreds of thousands of years. That was waffly, but I think you get the point.